Technology's promise has always been to connect us, to democratize information, opportunity, and voice. But while we have sat around debating whether AI can write symphonies or run our homes, millions still lack access to reliable internet, digital literacy, or even basic devices. The digital divide, once about access to computers, has evolved into a complex web of inequities involving affordability, infrastructure, education, and trust. In a world increasingly defined by connectivity, to be offline is to be excluded from education, jobs, healthcare, and civic life. So the divide isn't just a technical problem, it's a moral, social, and economic one. And I've got some good friends to talk about it with me. Welcome to The Rundown. Hello, good afternoon, good morning, good evening. What's wrong, Dave?
We're fine now. Well, you were echoing before because there was a delay of about 4 seconds, and we heard you saying things and then saying them again, and we figured the YouTube was up on your system or something. So
I don't think so.
Nobody else had speakers on.
Am I echoing? Is anyone
No, you're
hearing
fine
me?
now, actually. You came back fine.
Now we're beautiful.
And
Well,
we
there
also
you
have
go.
an additional,
Sorry
another
about
person
that.
has joined us.
I apologize if I was echoing, but you know
Or it
who's
might
not
be
echoing?
Sky, you know?
You know who's not echoing? Dave. Dave's not echoing.
Hi. No,
Hi,
I'm
Dave. How you doing?
not. I'm good. We had Thanksgiving on Monday, and we always do that before you guys because
Happy
our growing season has always
Thanksgiving.
been different.
That's wonderful. Did you have the traditional tofurkey? And
No.
no.
No, I'm a full-on meat eater, and I had ham. So yeah, not your.
I love
favorite.
myself a good tofurkey.
No turducken?
No turducken. That turducken voice is the voice of Lois Richter. Hello, Lois.
Hello.
Are you a turducken kind of person?
No, I am a collagist, but not with meat. No.
Okay.
Do people know what
people
turducken
who-
is? It's a turkey stuffed with a duck, stuffed with chicken.
Right, because killing one animal isn't enough.
Yeah.
Let's kill 3 and then shove them one inside the other. Oh, dear God. Okay. Tamara, help.
I don't even know how to follow that.
How you
How are
doing?
you, Dave? I'm good.
Our YouTube audio is fine, by the way, just so everyone knows. Vic is reporting back from
Amazing.
YouTube. Thank you, Vic. You doing well, Tamara?
I am doing well.
Good. I
Hanging in.
am especially excited to have Tony here with us tonight on this panel because this has been sort of your sermon on every one of our shows, and it is deserving of its own time. So I'm really happy to have you here, Tony. How are you?
I'm fine. Happy to be here. Looking forward to this conversation.
Fantastic. So am I. And look who else is here. Mr. Sky Gleason in his library doing everything on his iPhone. Very impressive.
I am pushing buttons that are so tiny that my far-sighted I can't. This is an adventure. Thank you for letting me experiment in a safe, nurturing, loving environment where I can fail forward with friends. I'm a 3F kind of guy.
But you know what? It's worth celebrating how good you look and how good you sound with just a phone. No, I'm not giving you any credit. No, it has nothing to do with you. I'm talking about the technology. You're gorgeous.
That's terrible,
You're
David.
gorgeous.
Thank you.
You're beautiful and perfect in every way.
Thank you.
It's kind of amazing what you're able to pull off.
Kind
It
of.
really is. Yeah.
I know it is technology. I'm scooting. I did the technological thing. I scooched the chair. I'm a scoocher.
That's how you get good framing. You just scooch, right? Bill could teach us about good framing. How are you, Bill?
I am fine. How is everybody?
I'm good. Did you change your mic setup? It looks like you changed your mic setup. Like now, I don't know.
I probably just moved it over farther. It's on an arm in front of me.
No,
so
I thought
probably
you used to have it. Didn't you used to have a black? Maybe I just haven't seen it in a long time. You used to have like one of those Sennheiser.
Yeah, I had a
didn't you?
Sennheiser in KH416 before, but I've been using this for actually quite a while now.
And why
in
do you make the
audiobooks,
change?
This has more nuance.
Ah,
And
okay.
I'm sitting at the same desk to do the audiobook stuff that I am for doing things like this show, so I just decided to go with one mic.
Nice. Do you like the
Yeah.
Sennheiser though?
Well, I like them both. They're both different. The Sennheiser cuts through beds and things like that more, so when I have to do kind of advertising related works, I tend to switch out to that because it's sharper. But this mic is way more sensitive. So if I have to whisper and things like that, it's very much more present than
And
the
what
other.
is that one again? Sorry.
This is a Neumann TLM 103.
A Neumann.
I've had this mic for 25 years, I think now.
Wow.
So
Cool.
yeah, it and I are old friends.
Thanks for sharing that. Well, hello everyone. We have some news to discuss today. Sometimes technology is frustrating. Let's just acknowledge that. Sometimes it doesn't do what we want. Sometimes it breaks. When Bill came in, he had to restart his system. Sometimes but can you forgive your technology? So there is a new study that came out of Israel that when a machine fails, our first reaction is often frustration. This is an article from the Jerusalem Post. And this study, which it's by two researchers, says that we can apply mechanisms of forgiveness toward technology. So this is in the journal Frontiers in Computer Science under the title Forgiveness in Human-Machine Interaction. So they looked at, I think it was 27 different people. Maybe it was more than that. The team interviewed younger people because they're most connected to digital technology, and that they're planning on doing studies of older people in the future. But people who are more familiar and comfortable with technology, they said, tended to be more forgiving, perhaps because they understood its complexity and the inevitability of mistakes. However, those who were wary of smart devices from the outset were less forgiving and sometimes abandoned the technology after a failure. So my question for you is, are you a forgiver or an abandoner? When something doesn't go your way, do you say, forget it, I can't do this, I'm done with you? Or do you offer your technology some grace, Sky?
I'm a forgiver.
Dave's a forgiver. Hold on, let me get down to Sky real
Of the
quick.
opinion.
Go ahead,
Yeah,
Sky,
go,
and I'll
Sky.
come right back to you, Dave.
I have evolved with this technology. When ping pong was a game with a ball and a table before Pong came along. So the whole reset, iterative, I'm not the one that's broken, it's the machine that's broken. No, I come from the land when the machine was broken.
Yeah.
So yeah, I get that being able to forgive it. But I have sat at an edit suite, and when the equipment goes down, the producer that sat behind me thought it was me. And it's like, because you can't blame your equipment, right?
Yeah.
You're a professional. But the marketing guys sold the equipment, and the engineers guys were so far behind in making it work that I was the one that was stuck in the middle with me. It's like, oh, it's horrible.
I think it's harder also as technology gets better because we are promised perfection. We're promised, 99.9% uptime. We're promised that AI will get it, will do magical work for us. And then when it doesn't,
Of course.
when it's not able to perform a simple task, it's really frustrating. Dave, go ahead.
Well, we have relationships with our technology, and we like and dislike them. And I mean, I love my car. I have strong feelings about my toaster. I love my home. My home is my technology. It keeps me alive. So we have relationships with all of our tools, and we like some more. There's a saw you have, and it never really cuts the way you thought, and you should have bought a better saw. I developed a wonderful relationship with my first Mac. And I think a lot of people did when they came across the Mac. They just sort of, like they often say, I fell in love with it and its capabilities and that sort of stuff. The other thing I developed, and it was over many years of working in production studios, when I had my own studio, which I was in charge of, I didn't own it. I would go into the control room and address all the machines. And I would talk to them about what we're going to do today. And I'm going to be relying on you guys to be right on time and ready for me. And when I make decisions, you'll have to wait me out. And I would have a wonderful day. If I didn't address all my machines, they would disrupt. They would have something wrong. A connection would be loose or whatever. And I always made it a point of that. Now, the reason I got that is actually from my wife, who is a Jungian analyst. And Carl Jung used to go into his kitchen and address all of his pots and pans before he began to make a meal so that they would cooperate with him and he would cooperate with them. It wasn't that he gave them any kind of personality or anything. He just knew that they need to know that I'm on their side and then that we're working together on this thing. So that's my reaction to the forgiveness thing, because I see my computer as something that I demand something from. And like my child, I have to know that it can't always do that. And so I don't blame my child for failing at something or not doing it the way I think, because he's still learning. So my machine evolves, and I still have a great passion for it, and I have a passion for using it. But forgiving it, easy, just easy.
Some of
It's
my
a tool.
happiest moments are when I find something that AI doesn't see, and I say to it, "But isn't this true?" And it says, "You know what? You're absolutely right. Good catch. Thanks for teaching," or something like that. And it makes me feel like, oh, okay. You're allowed to make mistakes.
But David,
I'm allowed to make
that
mistakes.
explains so much, because I would work in television studios that the equipment would fail until the engineer walked in.
Right.
And then the equipment will be perfect until they walked out again.
Oh, the
Right,
best
Bill?
friend arrived. Yes.
Taking
Yeah.
your car
Lois,
into
did
the
you
gas.
wanted to jump in?
The
Go ahead.
engineer.
So you all have wonderful relationships with your tech. I'm a divorcee. If something doesn't work, forget that. I'll do it a different way. If I
Really?
get an app and it doesn't function the way it said it was going to, there's other apps out there. I'll
That's
just
so
go find it.
unforgiving of you.
They're not a human being, David. You don't have to forgive an app. You just have to find the author and say, you made this mistake.
Brody says it's the relation. It's if the relationship isn't working, I just tell the tech, it's not you, it's me. It's not you, it's me. Go ahead, Bill.
I can find very few things I can't anthropomorphize to the point where I talk to it as a person. I just think we're conditioned to that. I'm going back to like Disney movies that turned lamps into people. And, I think we've been conditioned on that for a long, long time. I will say that I remember listening to my sister. She worked in a law office in San Francisco for many, many, many years. And she was talking about frustration with computers many years ago. And she said the tech came in and the first thing he did was lay on hands to the computer. And she talked to them afterwards, and he was going, well, yeah, I was trying to figure out where the fan was running.
Oh my gosh.
There was a simple physics-based reason, but we interpreted this as I am doing the laying on of hands. And so I just think there's a human natural tendency to imply behaviors to that, but at the end of it, we're all atoms, aren't we? So
Right. And I mean,
I
it's
did
very
a show
much
in a church once, and they
some of
put
us are
oil
Eves.
on the light board and prayed over the light board. And I was like, you may pray over the light board, but please do not put oil on the light board.
it's in many ways it's why we say please and thank you to ChatGPT and these other tools. But the idea of forgiving technology, we're so poor at forgiving one another, and even worse at forgiving ourselves. The idea that we're now doing studies about how to forgive technology, I think, is somewhat.
I found it so interesting because I had not actually thought about that as an even a possibility of forgiving my technology. I love the idea of it though, because then it takes all the onus off of me, because I find I'm very forgiving when things go wrong if I'm pretty confident that I can fix it. But when I'm, when I would start going to help in office hours and I couldn't get my comms to work, I couldn't get all this stuff. Like it was there were times when I just backed out. I was like, I can't do this. So I can go either way. I think when I feel confident, then I'm happy to forgive it. And then otherwise I'm like, oh, I should have done this a long time before. I should have called somebody, or, but I think that comes from being nervous around
You know what
people
you
who
just
know what
made me
they're
think
doing.
of, though, Tamara? You just, forgiving, I don't want to get too like psychological or spiritual here, but forgiving is as much about the person who is forgiving as it is about the person who is being forgiven. And so when when the comms aren't working, or the computer freezes at the worst moment, or the navigation app leads us, right to a traffic jam or what have you, it's one thing to allow that frustration, that anger, that whatever to take over. It's another thing to forgive the technology, which then releases
Right.
that frustration from you. You don't have to carry that around.
That's exactly what I loved about reading this. I was like, oh, actually, that does not put the onus on me as a failure. It puts it in very neutral terms.
Yeah.
That it's just like, you don't have to get frustrated about this.
Yeah.
And you can.
Well,
and as soon
we
as
also
I
used to,
No, go ahead, Sky.
we also used to live in a sales cycle that a product would be R&D'd, the product would be tested in a test market, a product would then come out every year, maybe, or maybe every 2 years, as soon as they needed to come out with a new product. But now, at the advent of software, we are watching the change of a product, and software is a product, but we are now the lab rats. We are the beta
we're the
testers,
testers.
but we didn't read that little checkbox says, yeah, things may not work the way you think they should, but you're not paying much, so why are you complaining? Shut up and use it.
Yeah.
Is it
Or find a different one.
Or do what Lois does and find a different one. All right.
is it
This-
also a bit of a
one of the-
marker? Oh, go ahead, Lois.
One of the things that Sky mentioned was the tech comes into the room and it works, or the laying of the hands. There is a theory, which you all probably won't agree with, but there is a theory that the energy of a person can interact with the machines, and that there are, in fact, people who they touch it and it doesn't work anymore. And I'm not sure how true that is. I mean, I've heard stories, but it hasn't happened to me. But if one believes that sort of thing, then praying to the machine gods is not unusual.
Yeah.
My wife cannot wear a watch.
No, I can't. I can't have metal around my wrist, around my neck. It cuts off the flow of my energy. My husband
My
doesn't
wife is
believe I
firmly
have
convinced
energy.
I scare computers. She thinks that mine does not work unless you walk into the room, and as soon as you do it, it starts behaving.
I actually love when when someone asks for help with me and I walk in and it works. It makes me feel very powerful.
Yeah.
This is just a lovely from Vic. He says, great scientists revel in being wrong or something not working as expected because it means they're going to learn something new.
Amen
And
for
yeah,
that.
I love that.
that's exactly what it is. All right, this is not on our news rundown, but I had to show this. This is the Zoom team winning an Emmy. I believe this was maybe last night or recently. In any case, there's our friends Andy and Jonathan and Brendan Idelson. Forgive me, I don't know the name of the fourth person, but just fantastic.
That's awesome.
And wonderful, and so proud of these guys. And what an honor! What a silly, crazy honor it is that we get to not only know them but play with the toys that they play with, and that they actually listen to some of the things that we say. It's all a little crazy and wonderful. So just
Are these all AI generated people?
no, these are the real people. These are the
Nice
real
transition.
I can
people.
avow they're very real.
Yeah. Bill, this is a news story
Yes.
that you actually popped into our sort of
Yeah.
Discord. I don't know if you want to set the page. This is we could have seen this coming, right?
Yeah, I think so. California is so intertwined in the entertainment industry. It's always been Hollywood, Hollywood, Hollywood. And so politically, it's been interesting. I guess both houses of legislature and Gavin Newsom, the government, signed it into law, a law that says that AI replicas of people have some restrictions on what you can do with them and things like that. And it has to do with whether or not you can clone something. Now, I guess in the fine print of this, it's talking about displacing workers. It's talking about taking somebody's persona and creating it and having them do other things, and how there should be laws preventing that. It does not say you can't create a non-attached avatar and then put that out there in the marketplace, but you can't suddenly do your avatar of a movie star and have them say anything you want without repercussions. That's kind of where I think it's going.
Tamara, what do you think?
So I think anything that protects actors is great. I also think that there's pieces of this legislator that I'm not sure does protect actors, because it protects actors in California and that drives business somewhere else. So I'm curious about how that works itself out. The other thing is, I really want, I don't want to discount this as unimportant, but I do think that the mass audience, when we look at things that involve actors, we only see like the high level actors and the high level production workers. Right. And so when we're talking about these things, it's very easy to dismiss, oh, those actors who are making so much money, when that is not what is happening. You know, majority of the actors do not make enough money in a year to qualify for their health insurance and to qualify for even, you know, the smallest salary. So it is important that we have legislation that protects people. I'm thinking this legislation is kind of allows or disallows for what I've heard is being done in some cases, where an actors come in, they've shot everything, and then they go in the back end afterwards in post-production and they go, hey, we need a line there. Great, let's just composite, not what is okay to do, which is take other pieces of the dialogue that they've already recorded that you already own and move it to a different place, but actually like reconstitute a scene or redo a scene. So I think that's what this is covering, which I'm all for that. I think that's great. I would love.
Just real quick. So an actor is in a show, a movie, or whatever. They wrap shooting. After the fact, they realized, we need that line. You're against being able to use artificial intelligence to generate that line, even though the actor is in the
yes.
Okay.
Because here's the thing, an actor is paid to come in and do pickup lines. So when you find out you're missing a line or you want to add a line to a scene, you bring an actor in for the day and we pay them a teeniest amount of money for them to do ADR. Okay. So one of the ways that you could, from a producing standpoint, go, hey, let's save some money. You know what we could do? We can just do this. Now, if we've already got the actor saying that, we can move that dialogue over if it fits, but you still have to pay. You have to pay actors, and so I think that's a lot of what this is talking about. Is that, and it also does have provisions for you can't use people's likeness after they've died unless they have left some kind of provision that is okay. So I think that is an interesting part of this.
I think Sorry.
If nothing else, I feel this is kind of a shot across the bow. I think that the government in California, because it is so involved in the movie business, is saying, hey, let's open up this discussion. Let's put it out there that this is a topic worth discussing. We're going to take it all the way to codifying it into a law and let the debate begin, because this is going to be massive across not just Hollywood and performance, but you know, if you give presentations for a living in the corporate world, why couldn't they just have you do one and then make multiple thousands of presentations with your avatar and not pay a penny for any of those? You know,
that's the promise of Zoom AI companion avatars.
What I thought immediately.
That's exactly what they're selling, is not having to do the presentation 10, 20, 30, 100 times. Yeah.
This is the tension we're living in right now with this AI generative stuff. It can displace theoretically almost everybody in a an amazing number of possibilities.
Yeah.
So
Dave, I'm going to
it's
come to
pretty
you.
dangerous.
I want to say one thing, and that is that Tamara, you said something earlier that really, I fall into this all the time. When I think about actors, I think about Tom Hanks. I think about the huge names, and that's not what this is about. I mean, it is, I'm sure, but there are 99.9% of the actors are underpaid, and that's who these new technological tools are going to hurt. Not the
Well, correct. And one of the things about it is that the people who are signing on, if you are a young actor and you're not even making any money at all, there's a real push to buy people's likenesses and tape them and do all of these things. And they're paying really low amounts of money that can pay someone's rent for that moment, but then could be reused in ways way down the road, that this person who in their early part of their career, they were like, yeah, that sounds great. I'll make my likeness. I'll do all this stuff, and not realize that they've basically sold themselves away for ever and will never get paid again. So I think it is really important to start having this legislation. And I think this legislation does exactly what Bill says. It opens the conversation, and the places where we also need to look at are things like advertising, and be putting laws in place in the same way that we have laws for children's advertising to children. We cannot advertise to children sugary things. We can't advertise to children cigarettes. We have actual laws in place for that. And I think we're going to have to come up with some kind of advertising laws, or some kind of laws that really put parameters on what we can say is real. Because that is where
we can't advertise sugary things to kids.
Not during kids programming.
Oh,
Like if you look at, like, there's a whole list of things you can and cannot advertise specifically to kids. So
I mean, I grew up on sugary based.
We did. So it's happened in the 90s.
That's
this shifted what you can advertise for kids. They put parameters on, and those kind of parameters are the kind of parameters we're going to want to have in our news reporting and in our advertising, so that we can have a very clear definition of what is real and what is not.
Dave, go ahead.
A couple of things have come up, and I'm going to go with Tamara introducing that. But I also remember the Shirley Temple time when, exploitation of kids and not even going to school because they're doing a movie. So they've laws to protect those. And I think of the extras. The extras can be reproduced quite easily because they're not talking and they're not in the shot. They're only in the background, and you don't have to hire 100 extras anymore. You could have 3D extras. And of course, we wouldn't have been able to make Lord of the Rings without those extras and the orcs. But I like this legislation for one reason only. And what it does is it makes your law fight for you. It doesn't mean you go to civil court to protect your avatar. You can go to the government and say they're breaking the law, and they will sue them or make them stop. And you don't have to go to civil court. And up until now, you were like a product or a copyright or a protected thing in terms of some of those laws, but they weren't up to date. And we needed something like this to give people a chance to win that argument. And as Bill has said, have that discussion with the judges about what is reasonably fair. And it's not fair for someone to take what I did and modify it and not reward me for the modification, because I'm still available to do that retake or reshoot or go on location and just walk away from the camera for that shot they need. But if you want to do it as an AR or VR kind of thing, well, then it's not real, and we've got to be careful about that.
Yeah, thank you, Sky.
I was just pondering when you mentioned Tom Hanks, the realization that he is a small business. I mean, he's got a staff. So again, that concept of the big movie star being the only person in Tom Hanks Inc. is the fallacy. And I'm going to let Tamara talk about it, because I know that the entourage is a part of keeping that talent sharp, and then consequently that entourage needs to get paid. So that's why the demand of the salaries often is the actor gets a piece of it, but the corporation that has to be managed is the publicist, the makeup, the makeup, the hair. So it's an entire industry that is also being exploited.
Bill, is sorry, I was muted. I know, I'm fine now.
One
Sorry.
thing I remember to speak to that. I remember when I was a young person in, on one of the series that I was first on, and I remember a guest star person. It wasn't a guest star; it was a series regular, but he was in one episode, had 12 lines, and we had done the math as to how much money he was paid per word. And I remember as a young person, we're like, that's outrageous. I'm making nothing. So I was like, that's outrageous. He would get, $1,300 a word. And the wonderful director, Fred Keller, came and said, actually, the lifespan of an actor like that is that lifespan of a gnat. They are being paid for the course of their lifetime in that short amount of time that they will have that particular job. So there's a lot more, there's a lot of complexity to Hollywood. There's a lot of complexity to what you see and what you don't see. And what you don't see are the crews and the people who are working a 60-hour work week. 50 to 60 hour is your contract is that. It's a 12-hour day.
Right.
So, all of those things, I think that's why when we hear these laws, a lot of the reaction you often get is like, well, that they don't have like real lives. But majority of the people making films are people who are blue collar workers who are there early in the morning doing very difficult work. And acting is not an easy gig. So, I think that it is important that we're starting these conversations, but I also think that they need to be in context with what it really means, as opposed to it just being like, California, they're always passing crazy laws and,
Right.
They're
Right.
just talking about actors. Because we saw that with the strike, where a lot of people have really, just were not behind either of the writer or the actor strikes. And in fact, they were devastating for our industry, and they came at like this perfect storm time. And the people who really lost out are the people who you just don't see, and who are not those big name people. It's the rest of the people in both of those unions, and then in all the support unions that do that work.
Bill, has AI come yet for voiceovers?
Oh, it's a huge topic. One of the reasons I've pivoted from doing what I call single voice work to working on producing multi-voice things is simply that I think a large chunk of the single voice work is going to get farmed out to AI. Not all of it. I do think there's a qualitative difference still, and I think it's actually going to last a few more years. That have you been on the web and you've seen one of those long stories that kind of draw you in, and you realize maybe 3 or 4 minutes into it, you hear something, oh, this whole thing has been AI from the beginning. Mm-hmm. They got it mostly right. Then they have this one moment where the uncanny valley just collapses around it, and you realize that this was crafted to keep you watching because they're looking for dwell time and nothing else. And the whole thing was created to keep you on their platform and keep the minutes tallying up. And that's a way that AI is manipulating us into spending a lot of time on the web that we might not otherwise. Now, sometimes they're interesting stories and they're fun to listen to. And so in that respect, it's no different than reading a good story for me as a young reader. But I do think it's very dangerous when you start getting algorithms into creativity and tune them for things like this dwell time, where they just want to keep you listening, keep you watching, keep you scrolling. And I think it can be very damaging. I'm starting to feel like that for a lot of the young people in culture right now, is that they start scrolling and it's very hard to get them away. I think Apple and other people that I remember when they said, they're going to start reporting how much time you spent on yesterday. Why'd they do that? That's a little odd. I think they saw the research.
Yeah.
And I think they saw how addictive this behavior can be, and they got a little worried.
Yeah. Vic is saying, in his opinion, AI performances based on real people should be handled and negotiated on a case-by-case basis until we move beyond the current nascent stages of AI. What do y'all think? Do you agree?
No, I
Certainly
go
a
with that.
defensible
Sure.
position. Yeah, absolutely. It's just so complicated and so difficult. We get so excited by the possibilities. I mean, you remember the first time you saw ChatGPT work for you and really take something that would have taken you an hour
Yeah.
and collapse it down into 30 seconds? Or Mid-Journey, where you just threw in a bunch of text and all of a sudden this beautiful picture came up that was as good as most of the fine illustrators of the past. And you went, wow! And it's taken a couple of years for some of the blush to come off that rose for me, and for me to understand that while the wow factor was huge for me, there's a very big set of questions that I'm confronting all the time now about how that's affecting me and what I do and everybody I know in the creative industries. It's just not simple. It's just not.
I think there's a place for both, though. I think there's a place for being wowed by my time being not spent doing the same amount of things task-wise as I would have to do, or having an assistant that I can't afford to pay right now. That's amazing. But I also think that that when we're talking about acting and when we're talking about writing, even if AI is better, there will come a point where we have realized that we have given up our humanity to an appropriated source representing us. And that's to me a bigger issue. Great, AI is perfect. It sounds great. When they reiterated it, it's going to be amazing. Do we really want our stories to be told by people who are not, by things that are not human? And I think that that's something we should be thinking about now, and we should be understanding that the lifeblood that we have with real writing and real actors doing that work and real storytellers telling those stories is the humanity. And when you, even if AI gets to a point where it sounds like that same humanity, do we really want our stories to be appropriated in that way? And I think the answer is no.
Lois, what do you think?
Well, when Mid-Journey first came out, and I was very excited, and I agree, it was kind of cool. But what I found is that I'm an artist, and I like making things. And so I jumped into Mid-Journey and I started making more and more and more stuff. But you can't just put something in and then it comes out and you're, oh, wow, and that's it. No. You got to keep reiterating and changing and modifying and trying it over. And I wasted so much time on something that was never going to be mine. It was never going to be real. I mean, it was not a work of art that I was going to, print out and frame and put on the wall. And so I think that's the risk for a lot of the things that we have is spending time on things that don't actually produce good stuff in the end. So the writers, I'll read Ursula Le Guin.
Right.
I do kind of feel the same way about a Jackson Pollock, but okay.
So let's transition from the creators to the consumers of which is all of us and everyone. We spend a tremendous amount of time in the office hours community and in our other communities talking about AI and the newest teleprompter and what mic are you using, and it is I think vitally important to every now and again step back and say, wow, first world problems. My mic isn't loud enough, or my whatever it is. My picture is I don't have the 1080p resolution, and so we really wanted to take a step back today and talk about the divide. In an age of acceleration, an age when technology is just moving faster and faster, and more importantly, when technology is the way in, when it is the bridge for work, for learning, for education, for civic participation, for all of these different things, when technology is almost required for so much of that, where are we in this digital divide that we have? And so my first question that I wanted to throw to all of you is, what does it mean to be connected digitally in 2025, and who is still left out? And we could talk both here in America, or well, I shouldn't say here in America because we have Canada here also, but in North America or globally, who is left out? Who's on the other side of this divide that we really haven't been speaking to in the past 51 episodes? Lois, go ahead and unmute.
I think that we have a number of different people and communities in that don't have part. Part of them, a small part, are people who don't want to be digitally connected, who are, I don't know, using horse and buggies or whatever, but they're consciously choosing to avoid things. They're the people who say, okay, I've got a phone, but my kids are limited to 1 hour a day. That's the sort of reduced use that is intentional. Unfortunately, there's a lot of reduced use that is not intentional. And it could be because you are in a remote area, an area that does not have Wi-Fi, internet access. It could be because you are impoverished and you don't have the resources to get the machines and the tools and pay the rent every month to be connected. So I do think we have a number of different areas and different reasons that we have people who are not in the connectivity part.
Right. And we're clearly, the goal of this conversation is not to really discuss those people who are choosing, although that's
Right.
a really valuable conversation also, I think. This is really about, so according to the International Telecommunications Union, 2.6 billion people, a third of the world's population, are still offline. They don't have access. And I'm not talking about high-speed access. I'm talking about access. They are not connected to the World Wide Web or to one another. And I think this is, and Tony, I don't want to throw you under the bus here, but I think what you've been really pointing me toward is not even those 2.6 billion people, but the many, many others in the richest country in the world and abroad, who don't have good connection quality, who don't have good speed, who can't afford. And again, because technology is now at the core of education and civic engagement and all of this, this isn't just about the quality of your Zoom meeting. This is about how you can live and be productive in society.
If you think of this as owning a car, when there are people who can't afford a car or don't have a car or whatever, well, they're in trouble. But if you are in a community where cars are not available much, like I'm thinking of big cities, well, you find out other ways of doing things. You make trolley cars, you get buses, that sort of thing. And I'm thinking that for people who can't pay a monthly fee to do something, we do have things like internet cafes. I know when my brother was on a sailboat on the Pacific, they would land at one of the cities, go to an internet cafe, and they could send and receive their email, once a week, once a month, whatever. But they could figure out a way to make it happen. And I would not
presumably
consider
they
them
paid
to
for
have been.
they paid
They paid
presumably, yeah.
for that minute.
Right.
It's sort of like the difference between renting and trying to own your own house.
Right.
It's a different experience.
Right. Tony, I'm gonna throw it to you, and then I'll come back to you, Tamara. But I just want to say that Tlalak asked. He didn't ask. He said in the chat, and this was going to be my next question. The question to debate is it a utility or is it a luxury? Right? Is connectivity, is access to technology that allows us to connect in digital space a utility or is it a luxury? Tony, let me throw it to you, and then we'll go to Tamara.
Well, it is. It is not a utility. It should be a utility, but it's not, and that's the problem. If it were a utility, then we would be having a different discussion about the digital divide. I think part of the concerns that I have, so I can speak from personal experience that I live in the state of Georgia, and where I live, I have 1 gig up and 1 gig down. My sister-in-law, who lives in Middle Georgia, in the county in which she lives, she is locked in to one single cable provider that her internet is barely above what we would consider a decent internet connection. And she has no recourse. She only can deal with that particular internet provider in her specific community. Now, in the same county, in the same city, across town, there is community that has 2 gigs up and down. That provider that provides the 2 gigs is not available in her community, even though it's in the same county and the same city. So we are in a space where this is a real thing in 2025. And we've had numerous discussions in the office hours community about how, right across the street, somebody is able to get a gig and somebody's dealing with something that's very, very much not adequate. And so it's a real thing. And so the answer to the question, I think, is it should be a utility, but it's not. And things are not going to change as far as that's concerned. But as indicated in our really show notes, that's just part of the problem. There's other factors, the economic conditions, their education in terms of the use of how to use the internet. And so there's a lot of factors to this whole thing of the digital divide. But the main thing right now is broadband, and it's not a utility. It's a luxury.
Tamara.
So right after COVID, we had more access to internet access. We had digital equity where people could get access to federal money went in to fund libraries so that people could go and rent, check out access, digital access. And that is something that we're talking about now ending, that is something that our government wants to end, that we're saying, well, those people can do exactly what Lois said. They can go into a library, or they can go into a cafe and get access that way, but they don't have we're not going to fund for someone to go and check out from the library or check out like an actual modem to bring home that they can use to have access in their home. I don't know if you've been to a library recently, but when you're talking about 4 or 5 machines hooked up to the internet, then that is really not practical for the number of people who do not have access to internet. So these are real conversations that are happening right now, that we're saying that some people that it is not important enough for everybody to have it. And to be in 2025 and to have that kind of attitude, there are a lot of people who don't understand that they need it, and like as Lois said, that's a choice. But for us to say that it is not important enough to put money into to make sure that that is something that everyone has access to in 2025 seems absolutely crazy. But those are actually conversations that are happening and that legislation is moving towards.
Bill, go ahead.
I'm seeing part of this, though, as we keep thinking of AI as something that I am connected to. And I do think it's bigger than that. I have a friend, Ian Anderson, in Australia. I've known him for a long time, and he just wrote another book. And this one is called, I'm looking at the title, AI and Creative Production. It's coming out in the beginning of next year. And he breaks AI down into three general categories in this. One of which, utility AI, Michael Chione's talked about. That's where I first heard about that. That's utility AI is just getting stuff done, right? It's the spell checkers, it's the things that really nobody really argues much about because it really does enhance human ability. He has on top of that and generative AI, which is the creative stuff, automation AI. And I'm going to have a little bit of an argument here that the automation and the utility AI are going to benefit even people who do not have connection, high speed, low speed, or whatever, because it's going to enhance the ability of information to flow, even if you can only access it by going to your library and talking to somebody else or calling up on the telephone and looking at someone who's in front of a resource bank that lets them answer your question more accurately and more quickly and get you the information that you need. It's really the generative stuff that is going to be, to my mind, so ridiculously disruptive. And what I think we all hope for is that these practical, pragmatic, utility type AIs continue to make the world an easier place to live in because they'll affect everything from what the nurse prescribes to you, what the doctors do, and everything else. And that could generally benefit everybody, even the poorest people in the poorest communities with a little phone doing diagnosis and stuff like that. That, I think there's a divide between that stuff and the generative that are knocking people out of work here left and right. It's my 2 cents.
Dave.
When I was looking your stuff over in the rundown, I noticed you used a term like barriers to participation. And that, for me, is a government policy statement. That's the government should reduce barriers to participation in all areas of how they vote, where you park, all that sort of stuff. The barriers I saw were a handicap, that someone has a disability and they're sidelined because of that. Skills and literacy, that's quite widespread. Having the skill to use a computer requires someone to sort of show you what's going on. Providers, we've talked about, so I won't. Location and its availability, I think that was very strong point by Tony. And reliable income is important if you want to have a permanent one. You've got to subscribe to some things and you've got to pay for that line all that time. And if you don't have electricity, all of this falls down. And there are parts of Canada that have limited electricity. We have enormous distances with nobody in them. And so it's very expensive to run a line, even a couple of kilometers. I've had friends of mine who live on acreages and they have 2 kilometers between their driveway and the line. And it's like $15,000 just to get a line put in. Is it worth that? Well, for them, if they run a business out of their home or they need to be connected, that's the luxury they have to have. But I'm on the side of utility. And then a question came to mind after reading all that stuff. I thought, haven't I heard in the past that there are still some states which have outlawed municipal internet?
Yeah.
And is that something we have to change? Up here, we have only 4 or 5 services, and some of them divide a city. I was in one. One side of the city had one company and the other side the other, and they generally had the same service, but it was always pricing competitively. In Amsterdam and most of the Netherlands, the government installed all the lines. They did it. Just every house got connected. After that, the competition was between providers, not between suppliers. It's like electricity. There's no competition where the electricity comes from. It's the providers that are charging you for it. So in those areas where you call it a utility, you can still have competition. You can still have profit, just as we do with water and electricity. We just need to make sure everybody's hooked up. So I'm into that. And I also, there's an angle here. Safety and health aren't always connected to online, but a community of people can be there for you if they don't see you online, or if you have a message that makes them think you've just had a stroke. I mean, we were talking the other day about the watch saving lives, and it has to have the internet to do that. You have to be connected in order for that to be helping you with your health. So those are some of the things that came to me when this subject came up. But I'm on the side of having it as a utility and giving everyone a chance to learn how to do it. One caution I'm going to give you, though, and I'm really strong in this because I am into media literacy. Uh, Digital literacy is not about learning to use the system. Digital literacy is knowing what it's doing to you.
Right.
Before I jump back to Tamara, I just want to bring in that E. Emmerich says, I agree with Alex Lindsay. Fiber to every house should be a mandatory utility. Tamara, what do you think?
I think that I agree with that because there's more and more things that are happening only online. So I think if I had a doctor's appointment this week and I found out, so my doctor said, hey, we're going to be using AI to transcribe my notes. Amazing. I want you to use AI. I like AI. So it transcribes my notes. I am on a conversation with them, but it isn't until I go into my online portal that I'm really able to get lots of information about my visit. So in the past, I would just have to take notes, and that wasn't available to me. But more and more things are available only in digital spaces that are really important to people's lives and that are important to their health and that are important to their economics. There are certain bills you can only pay online. So when the world is now functioning in a way where it is mostly accessible online, then we have to think of it like utility in the same way that you thought of as the phone was your access to different businesses. So if things are going to be online and people can't, I think I was thinking about that as I was going through. I'm like, I have access to my test results. I know every single thing. I can thoughtfully ask questions. I can sit and really, understand my own health in a different way because I'm not waiting for things to come in the mail or things that, a lot of the stuff that I'm getting, I never had that in the mail. So people who don't have access to that, they do not have access to your doctor's notes, which are now done right away and they're put up online for you to access. So we're not talking about like fun things. And I think we can kind of reduce this to, well, not everybody needs to be on the internet. Not everybody needs to have TikTok. No, not everybody needs to have those things. But the things that are making our lives run and that are our health and our well-being, those are becoming more and more where you cannot actually talk to a human. You have to go to talk in a digital space. And if people don't have access to that, then they are not having access to large portions of their life. And it is making a have then an haves and have nots. And I think that's really important.
Yeah, and that's why I think that in the same way that we're saying before, how it's gotten so much better, that technology has gotten so much better, and it's become so much more integrated into our life, that even 5 years ago, it was a very different conversation about equity or right. in access. Today, as you just said, it's a necessity. Sky and Lois, please, and Tony. Sky, Lois, Tony. How's that?
That sounds great. I'm gonna say my piece, and then I'm gonna go as a volunteer, be a part of my people group that I volunteer at the top of the hour. What keeps coming to mind is at some point we had to put in an interstate system, a road system, and it was kind of a manifest destiny experience, and it cut cities apart. It did some real damage. So what I'm pondering, I guess, is I'm absolutely for the equity of ability and opportunity. And I saw that historically, why do we have, and check me on this, but I think every certain distance on a highway, you have to have at least a mile of straight road, because at the time that the interstates were being built, they were doing also a lot of things with airplanes, and they knew that was going to be the alternate place to land an airplane. And again, this is history. I don't have the details, but I'm also
Really?
concerned about, yeah.
That's fascinating.
Well, and what is the Autobahn but a way that particular chancellor was able to move the troops around throughout the country. He was trying to move heavy machinery quickly. So these are all historical details, but in the building of something, what is the cost I mean, I just was made aware in a journalistic fashion that outside of Memphis is a very large data center that is being powered by, well, circumstantially, since the EPA was basically eviscerated, there were entire systems put in and are now doing huge health damage to people in that region. And again, this is not emotional, this is factual. And at least the journalistic people that I was, learning this information from really did their homework and did their research and said the cause and effect of a thing does have consequence. And who is the benefit of that is a part of, a narrow uh, component or a broad component. So
That
again, like last week, I was kind of the Debbie Downer when I said, there are parts of the world that still don't have plumbing. Well, here I am again, pondering about this question
right.
of the value and then the consequence
So
is
you're right.
move fast to break things.
No, I mean that's a really important piece of this is that let's say that fiber is run to every home as a mandatory utility. Everyone has access to AI, all these different things. There are serious and real consequences that will also be damaging to people. So it's very
Well,
much
and this is why your job in what you do as a teacher, a trainer, an influencer of an ideal, an ethic, an ethos, is so critical. And this technology is just the vehicle by which that
right,
idea of helping one another is is useful. But again, you can kill somebody with a butter knife. It's not what a butter knife's made
right.
for. So this is why, yes, and in my improv of a thing.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
thank you all for letting me be here. I'm going to go
Lots
do
of
my
love.
volunteer thing.
Lois, go
Thank you.
ahead.
Oh boy, this is a topic that is so serious and so important, I think. And what I keep coming up with when I'm hearing all of you and all of these stories is, okay, how can we make it better? And one suggestion is make it a utility. Okay, that's fine, that's good. Until we get there, how can we make it better? We can perhaps in a community that doesn't have access to this internet, maybe that entire community can be given a satellite access. And then all of those people are suddenly able to be connected. I'm thinking of it like, the people who get together and they go over and they build a well for a community that didn't have one before.
That's how cable
Maybe
TV started.
yeah, and maybe making sure that the funding for libraries includes access to internet machines because they're very important for a lot of people, and most of us don't realize that or know that. So what else can you, dear listener, think to do to help with the problem?
Tony, over to you.
I kind of wish I didn't have to come after Lois from that.
Gotta follow that one, huh?
Yeah. So I'm going to make it personal. So I have not. The last time I was in the classroom was 2013. That was the last time I was actually teaching. I have not worked since that time. I have had numerous health challenges over the years. A lot of different things. But what I want to say is that right now, I am totally medically being treated through interactive internet, phone services. I no longer go to my doctor's office. They send someone out to the house. They send x-ray machines out to the house. They come out and do blood work. And everything is done through web portals and visiting nurses and all of that. Now, I share that from the standpoint of, if I did not have the internet, access to the internet, I would be in trouble because I am not physically able to get to the doctor's office. I only share that because what if I was not able to have internet services? I probably would not be here right now. So for me, it's personal. And I know that there are other people who are in situations like I am. And I'm fortunate enough that my wife has had a very good job at very good insurance, and that has made the difference. But there are people who are not in the situation that I'm in. And as time goes by, I see it getting worse and not better, because the reason that I believe that internet will not, or when we say broadband will not be a utility, is because of greed. It's not profitable for it to be a utility at this time. Now, maybe in the future it will be. So going back to the point that Lois was making, is that we probably need to encourage states, cities, communities to do the things that they did during the height of the pandemic. What was going on? So different schools were providing a school bus that would go into the neighborhoods, provide internet access so that students could do their homework. Things like that are things that we can do right now. So it's a matter of us talking to our city, our county, our community, our province, whatever it is, to ask them, can we provide these services for people who don't have access? But to think that somebody is going to actually volunteer to provide broadband to make it a utility, that's not the world in which we live right now. People are essentially, people who have the resources don't seem to be interested in their common man. So it becomes important for the individual people in the communities to reach out and support one another. And maybe I'm, in the fantasy land to even propose or even think that this is a possibility, but that's kind of where we are. I don't want to be controversial, but I do think that there seems to be a lack of hope for the larger man in this world right now. And as I said, the way in which I think that we get through it is that we reach out to our community houses of worship, we reach out to our communities, and we ask them, what can you do to help? Because I think it's just the tip of the iceberg, because the gap is widening.
Yep.
It's widening because there are going to be people that are going to be able to do all of these fantastic things with AI and be able to provide their children with essential things that will allow them to be producers and contributors to society. And then there are going to be people who are not able to be contributors, and that gap is widening. And I'm thankful that we're having this conversation tonight, because it's not something that people really want to talk about. It's uncomfortable. And we're just we're just in a place right now where there needs to be a dialogue amongst the people to try to convey to those community, local resources to bind together to try to help, church, houses of worship, community centers, any nonprofits. Those are the things that are going to help people get through, because we're just not in a place where the gap is lessening. It's getting wider.
Let me bring in a couple comments from YouTube. Vic is saying that it's not uncommon for third world countries to leapfrog landline connectivity and move directly to cellular. Now, with the promise of satellite connectivity, data access may be available nearly worldwide. And Beauty Bubble TV says, Tony is correct. We are yet unable to share our internet data or data bill credits with others in more need or more immediate need than ourselves. I continue to feel like we're sort of missing the boat. That we're not. Someone said before, I think Tamara said, that this isn't that it's all about the money, and that making access to the internet or technology, making that a right rather than a privilege, is not doesn't satisfy your shareholders. But the truth is that I don't think we're thinking. I don't think we're thinking big enough, because access means more entrepreneurship. Access means more knowledge, more education. Access means more integration and participation, and all of that leads to growth and money. So, Bill, I think we're missing something here. But Bill,
My question is, are we evolved enough to put bigger pipes everywhere? And I say that because, while yes, bigger pipes to everybody, everywhere would allow amazing things, it will also allow terrible things. For everybody who will get uplifted, there is somebody who will try to sell you junk, and somebody will try to mess with your mind. And I'm just wondering, we haven't had very many years, and we certainly haven't had a curriculum in education for any part of this that is really specific about how to appropriately use the internet. And we all know that there is awful material out there, and I don't want a bigger pipe for that. And most people who are decent don't want a bigger pipe for that. So we want more internet. We want more.
Yeah.
Everybody gets the big pipe,
that's
but
really
we don't have
interesting.
much mechanism.
Bill, that's a really. We've spent a lot of time talking about the garbage that's out there and what a problem it
Absolutely.
is, and now we're talking about, let's make sure that we give that garbage to the last third of the world.
What?
Yeah,
Unlimited garbage for
Right.
everyone, and unlimited goodness. We've talked about healthcare and all
Yeah.
the things that almost everybody decently can. Yes, I want your watch to bring you help when you have a heart attack. You're my grandmother. You must have that. I'm all for it. I'll vote for it 100 out of 100 times. But suddenly, the big pipe also does something horrific.
yeah.
And
The
are
other,
we
but the
mature
other,
enough?
the other
Yeah,
side
but-
of that, the other side of that is that that's true. But the other side of that is, it may be that child who was deprived of the internet that could have been the one to solve cancer.
Right.
Absolutely, but there's, I think, an
and-
equal
and-
chance that kid is going to run into a predator somewhere along the way. So it's just a tension. I don't disagree with you at all, Tony. And I want that child to have the opportunity, because we need to take care of all of them. But boy, there's a danger that comes right in the door with that.
Yeah. Dave,
we
go
see
ahead.
this
Jump
with
in.
everything. Oh, go
Hold
ahead.
on one
Tim.
second, Tamara.
The other thing too, I'm sorry. The other thing too is that there are people who have been left behind and continue to be left behind. Technology is a way, you are right, absolutely right. But technology is a way to provide a level playing field for everyone. And so, yes, you're right. The bad things can happen. But it does provide an opportunity to level the playing field. And for those creatives that can help solve some of the things that we are dealing with, we're leaving them out.
Dave,
Tamara's
and
next.
then I think we'll give Tamara the last word.
Oh, okay. Hey, Tamara, you get the last word this time. Social ills, which is what comes with the territory, are never solved by technology. We have social ills as a result of the highway system. We have social ills based on what our energy needs are. All of these things have their balance, and it isn't something we should not do because it could be bad. We let children have dangerous scissors in their hand, and we teach them the right way not to hurt somebody else. So we have an obligation, to give access to everybody, and that's not a technological problem. That can be done. If you can build highways interstate, you can put fiber anywhere. Now, that actually happened in my province. They put fiber into every town. There are hundreds of towns in my province. They spent $800 million way back in 2005, and now we've had 20 years of fiber everywhere, and it's not a problem. The fiber's not the problem, it's the people on it. And it's the same with the driving is not the problem, it's the guy behind the wheel. So, or the nut behind the wheel, I think, if I get it right. So I think the social ills question is not what Tony's talking about. Tony's talking about equal access and let the chips fall, because there are going to be bad people who now have no access and they see an opportunity for exploitation, and that's their fault. That's their flaw in who they are as a person. And it may also be a product of their situation that they only see. I had the privilege, if not the strangest privilege, of dealing with lifers, the guys in prison who are there forever. They're not getting out. And they came and they worked with me. And they taught me something that I didn't realize lifers believe. But they think everybody is conning somebody. And this is the trouble they get into, is they think everything's a con. The prime minister is a con. The premier is a con. And what I was doing with them was somehow a con I was running. And it was a baffling thing for me because I don't see it that way. I'm a privileged white guy who was brought up in middle class, and I didn't have anybody taking stuff away from me, or my mom was not going to jail. So in the sense that the divide is there, it's not necessarily something we can't move out of the way. If we move that out of the way, maybe a person doesn't do the bad things anymore because they are more stable in their life and they get a chance to see there is a better life they can have. So I back you up on that one, but I think Tamara gets the last word today.
Go ahead, Tamara.
It is 2025, and we have spent a lot of 2025 talking about how amazing the world is changing weekly, daily. It is rapidly innovating and iterating into new and different things. What we're talking about is the value of a person. What we're talking about is how much do we value people's life? How much do we value their ability to make money, their ability to learn, their ability to grow? And what we're saying when we're saying, well, there's a lot of bad stuff out there, we're allowing that bad stuff and people to make personal decisions about it, but we're saying these people can't make those decisions. So what we're talking about is investing in our communities and investing in our economy and investing in our growth as a society by empowering people to make their own decisions. And by saying, they don't have money, we have this conversation across the board. We don't want to put we don't want to have lunches in schools because we don't think, some people are like, well, parents should pay for that. But you know what? I taught in the South Bronx and I taught in East LA schools, and those schools did not have the same access to lunches, to lunch programs, as the private school that I taught in that cost $112,000 a year to attend K-12 education. So if you have money, then we're willing to pay for breakfast, lunch, and dinner for you. But if you don't, too bad. And that is what we're talking about here. We're saying your value as a human is less than. And that's why this is important. That's why these conversations have to happen, why we have to continue having these conversations, because we have to value humanity enough to give them access to their own choices.
There you go. There you go. To be continued. There's more to be said here. Really grateful to all of you, Bill and Lois, Tamara, Dave, and Tony and Sky, who's out there doing God's work right now as we speak. I'm really grateful to all of you for being here. Thank you for taking the time. And thank you to all of you for joining us and watching. Tlaloc and Emmerich, Beauty Bubble, Vic, as always. It's really lovely to have all of you guys here watching us and participating with us and sharing your thoughts. We have more to talk about coming up next week and every week. Next week is it, isn't it? Next week is like the official 1 year, I think.
I think so.
Is next week the 1 year? I think next week is the 1 year. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, because we started the 24th.
Yeah, there you go. Next week is the 1 year, everyone. So we'll see you next week for an anniversary show. The best of. Have a lovely...
Feel party hats.
Right, we all need party hats, absolutely. Have a lovely rest of the week, everyone. See you soon. Bye-bye. Thanks.